Hi Bruce, I'm Bryan Kennedy. I'm with Electric Imp, and I'm the Vice President of Strategic Development and Worldwide Sales. That role involves essentially two things. Number one, I work with the team to help figure out where the best business applications of connected products and services are. And then number two, I get to live with the results of that and actually try to engage with customers. So it's a good real-world feedback loop.
It is. Now, what type of customers do you sell to, and what are the vertical markets that you mostly focus on?
So Electric Imp is primarily selling to manufacturers of other products, OEM manufacturers of products. We started originally in home automation and consumer, but have expanded our markets now into both commercial and industrial applications. So we have a really broad variety of verticals and applications, but going forward we're mostly focused on the commercial and industrial.
On the commercial and industrial, where are you seeing traction right now?
Well, we've seen, again, originally a lot of traction in home automation and consumer. The applications were obvious, very quick time to market. Those industries tend to spin products a couple of times a year. When you get into commercial and industrial, much more serious applications, typically much longer time to market, so it can be 2 years and north of 2 years to go from initial design through field trials, testing, and actually out to launch. So it is a much longer time to market, but those are much more valuable. Those tend to be connected more on the order of 5-10 years plus, where a lot of the consumer and home automation might be only connected for 1 to 3 years. So much more valuable applications.
So now, is it more on the embedded side or on the bolt-on side? Are you working? It seems like if you said there's a 2-year product phase, then you're probably getting embedded right into the product. Is that the case?
Well, that's a great question. So we actually have a strategy to kind of go at it 2 or 3 ways. So one, when you go with a new, I call it a clean sheet design, it can take a year to get the design completed because you have to do hardware, software, embedded applications, often some industrial design to go with it. Then there's typically prototyping, piloting, and eventually getting into high volume manufacturing.
And that's about a year, you're saying?
Well, it's a year up front and another year on the back end. So from our perspective, and we'll get into the business model in a minute, but we're actually a connected services platform as a service business model. So we don't actually start to see revenue until those products are out in the field and installed. So we like the clean sheet designs. They tend to be most high value, high volume, but they do take a long time. So as a business strategy to offset that, we go after what I call field retrofits. And our ideal customer, while they have some new clean sheet designs they want to work on, they're looking to quickly go scratch an itch for a product that's already in the field. So our technology is also very able to be made into field retrofits. So we have a number of customers lately, one in commercial office products. They have a couple of million devices in the field. They're looking to retrofit connectivity, and we're able to bring a tremendous amount of value very quickly. So those kinds of projects we're seeing typically from our first engagement to revenues can be 12 months. So our perfect customer has some of both, but we love having a mixture of both opportunities.
Now, you were saying 24 months, the front end being the design, and I guess the prototyping. What was the back end?
Well, the back end is tooling. If there are certain classes of products, medical, for example, power grid, they're very conservative about rolling equipment out because of the potential downtime in the field. They'll typically have another step where they put many thousands of devices in a field trial prior to full production release. So that can add upwards of a year just on that step.
Now, our customers, they're paying, I suppose, on the field trial too.
Well, they are, but the value of all of that work, it's all really at the end of the day an investment in the larger application at the end. So while we do get paid for that work, it's not anything near the business model we're looking to. It's really the back end that counts.
And I'm going to be interested to ask you, what the pivot points are on your business model. But before we do that, I think it's important. What's the product? What do you guys sell?
Well, I'm glad you asked. So Electric Imp has a complete end-to-end connectivity solution consisting of 3 things. So there's hardware, there's embedded software, and cloud services.
Okay.
The technology actually consists of a device on the product side that attaches to the product and is a fully programmable device, and that also includes web connectivity up to our internet cloud.
Okay.
And then on the cloud side, we're also running software and connecting to the device on a persistent connected basis.
Okay. Okay. Now, would this be what many classify as a IoT platform?
So it is indeed an IoT platform used for designing, developing, deploying, provisioning, and managing connected devices throughout their entire life cycle.
Okay. And generally the product, you're saying on the front end, you've got your connected sensors, whether that's going to be embedded or it's going to be a bolt-on. You're then transporting that data across to the company, to a cloud service. Now, what happens then? Are you doing any of the analytics? Are you providing any of these services, or do the customers then just pull that data from the cloud and do what they want?
Yeah. So let me just clarify a little bit the point you made. It isn't just sensors.
Okay.
We have a fully programmable device on the device side. It could be sensors.
Yeah.
However, it could be completely replacing a logic in a microcontroller in some applications.
Okay.
So you can write very sophisticated code, not only that monitors,
Okay.
but it can also actuate, control,
Got
compute. You could even move analytics down to that tier.
Yeah.
So it's very powerful. That is connected up to the cloud, as you said. We have actually a virtual machine running one-for-one on both the device side and the cloud side with a persistent connection. So that has a lot of interesting implications. But to your question directly, what we look to do is the automation of the device, the connection of the device. We don't attempt to be I'll call it the system of record for storage and further processing of the data. So the idea is you connect your device up, your device is now available programmatically up in the cloud on a real-time both monitoring and control basis.
Okay.
Typically, on the other side of a RESTful API, if you have a database to store data, possibly you're putting in Firebase, possibly you're putting in an enterprise application, possibly you're putting in it in an analytics application like SAP HANA, or maybe Salesforce.com, or any other application. So our philosophy is we connect, control, operate, and manage the device. All the computation done with the device and relative to the device, but in the cloud we hand off typically to another tier of whether it's web services or application software or analytics.
Okay, no, that makes sense. Okay, so now our listeners have a business, we want to make it a connected business, whether that's connecting a product, an asset, an environment, whatever the case may be. Now you're saying that you don't really sell to the end customer. What you do is you sell to a product manufacturer,
Exactly
a system
correct.
integrator,
Exactly
design
correct.
firm, is that right? Okay.
Yeah, all of them get involved. Typically our real target customer are the people who manufacture the products.
Okay, so you're working directly with the manufacturer.
Directly with the OEM manufacturers of the products. Now, different industries, there's different levels of sophistication. So, for example, you might be an appliance manufacturer. You really know what it takes to build an appliance and get a successful customer experience with that appliance. However, when it comes to connected products, a lot of new things are entered into the equation. Now, you can just add a few features and that will change your business a little bit, but now you're really not capturing the value, the full value of connected products.
Right.
If you're going to do that, typically then most of the companies who are great at making products need to add certain other capabilities. So very often, for example, they may not be used to shipping a connected product and actually being responsible for operating it 24/7 for the next 3, 5, or 10 years.
It's more than, it's not just out the door, it's yours still.
Exactly. Number 2, they may not be familiar with developing application software that helps realize that value. Number 3, they may be able to benefit mightily from analytics, and they may not have expertise in that. So actually, how we go about helping our customers to solve that, we have an ecosystem of partners, significant globally creditable partners in many different industries and in these capability areas.
Okay.
So very early in the engagement with the customer, we sit down with the customer, assess what their capabilities are, what the gaps are, and then we will bring in our partners to work with us to help bring a complete solution to the table.
So a couple questions. Who's generally the first point of contact when a customer is thinking about this? Who do they normally reach out to? And then who are the other classifications of partners that you bring in to kind of complete the team?
Do you mean on the customer side or on the customer side? So that depends on the customer and on the industry they're in and on the size of the customer.
Okay. So it's all over the place.
Well, it's a little all over the place, but there are some pretty clear patterns that are emerging. So in the very large global multinational companies, they tend to have a centralized group at the corporate level, typically office of the CTO. Usually within that office, they'll have advanced technology groups. Some of them even have now IoT groups. So it's their job to be looking at the world outside to see what technologies are available. It's also their job to know the different products and projects inside and which of those projects could benefit from technologies. So often we're finding it's a very good place to start. They're very receptive to hearing about the technology and the story, and they're also very good about understanding where it applies. And if they like what you're doing, they'll often work with you to introduce you to the actual product groups.
Now it's interesting when I heard you say who's involved, I'm hearing a lot of technology people. I'm not hearing a lot of business people. So tell me how that fits in your experience.
So it starts there.
Okay.
And we're actually having a talk later tonight that gets into the details of how one creates business value by connecting your products. So it's a bit of a longer discussion, but to give you the short version now, if you're really going to realize true value from connecting your products, it isn't just about adding a couple features and functions. It's about transforming your entire business. One of the reasons we come in at the CTO level, at the corporate level, at the end of the day, it takes either a CEO level commitment in a medium to large company, or in a global multinational, it takes at least the person running the entire global line of business and their C-level team to make the commitment to have the complete organizational transformation to truly realize the value.
Wow.
Now, that makes for a much more difficult process with a lot of moving parts. There's a couple of ways to approach that, some step-by-step ways, but what we tell our customers is that if one of your competitors steals the march on this, yes, it takes quite a bit of work and time to do this, but you profoundly transform your business model. And if you're a year or two ahead of your competitors doing this, they're going to clobber you in the marketplace, not only with the consumer and the product, but their entire business structure, ecosystem, revenue model, and so forth. It's a very big commitment. So it goes back to, if you're going to get full commitment to these projects, you have to have C-level commitment up and down.
All right, let's dive into the business model. Tell us about your business model and how it interfaces with the customer's business model.
So our business model is quite straightforward. So we're basically a platform as a service, and we sell a monthly recurring revenue model. We call it an Imp month. So the least common denominator of our sales is one device connected for 1 month.
Okay.
And then we charge based on...
It's a device month? Is that
It's a device month.
Okay.
That's exactly correct. Now you can start out with a simple, we call it pay-as-you-go. So if you have a great deal of uncertainty of the market uptake, we'll actually let you ship the devices, and then we'll look monthly in arrears, see how many were connected, and send you an invoice. On the other hand, if you're looking to really get the most bang for your buck and the biggest discounts, the first step you can do is, rather than buying pay-as-you-go, you can commit to a volume of a minimum of months, 100,000 device months or whatever the number is. So then we start to do significant discounting. The second thing you can do is, instead of committing to that for 1 year, If you have long-lived assets and you can commit to that for 5 years or 10 years or whatever, then we'll put another significant discount on the top of that. So the model's really aimed at large manufacturers with things connected for long periods of time. The cost ends up being a trivial part of the equation, and the return on investment and incremental revenues is really where the story starts to work.
Yeah, I'm real interested in that for sure. Now, can you give us a rough ballpark on a typical trial, a cost for a trial? So our viewers are watching this, they're going, wow, how much is this going to cost me? So just roughly, can you give us an idea for the platform side? What are we talking about? $100,000,
Sure.
$10,000 over a period of a year, let's say?
Well, nothing close to that. And actually, some people actually historically think of us as a hobbyist company because our devices are so inexpensive and our service is so easy to use. And by the way, for developers and small hobbyists, we give the service away for free at low volumes. So if you're looking to connect up a couple of devices, either as a proof of concept or a hobbyist, you may pay quantity one, $35-ish or so for the hardware device, and we'll give you some amount of service for free because we're trying to encourage people to really use the platform. Now, there may be a greater expense in your proof of concept. Maybe you have to make a circuit board for your washing machine or your air conditioner, whatever the device you're connecting, so you could have additional cost there. And by the way, we'll help you with, we do a little design consulting and help people do that. And everything has been engineered. One of our core value propositions is time to market. So for some of our larger customers, we'll often offer to do a proof of concept. We can take things in-house and actually have something connected and back to them in 4 weeks or less, including building circuit boards and writing embedded code. So it really blows people's minds how easy it is to use this technology and get a product to market.
Yeah, no, I mean, the barrier of entry seems to be pretty darn low. Okay, with our last 2 minutes, how about you give our viewers advice on how they should start a deployment? What's the approach? How do you get a successful deployment off the ground? What would be the first steps, let's say?
Well, it's always good to start with a proof of concept and play around with it. This is all new technology. Lab, you know, not unlike internet and a browser in 1995. We're only limited by our imaginations, what the possibilities are. So first, it's good to get one thing connected in the lab. And this is a very common pattern our customers are following. The second thing is you build 5 or 10 pilot proof of concept devices.
Okay.
You spread it around some friends inside your organization and 1 or 2 customers. What you're really looking for, our technology tends to be rock solid and people don't run into those issues. What they're really looking for is what are the features and what are the user experiences that are really going to capture the customer. Because you can actually reprogram and deploy new features daily, couple times a day, you can do this great agile development, you know, with trial and error. And so what you're really trying to do is get the product out into some customers' hands and do some trial and error and get some real world feedback. And our platform is exceptionally good at enabling that.
That's excellent advice. That's excellent advice. Get it out there, get some feedback, have that feedback to go back to your management, then plan your business around it. I really appreciate your time, Bryan. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Bruce. Appreciate it.